Om Akhandamandalakaram Vyaptam Yena Characharam Tatpadam Darshitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Vasudeva Sutam Devam Kamsachanuramardanam Devaki Paramanandam Krishnam Vande Jagadgurum Krishnaya Vasudevaya Devaki Nandanaya Cha Nanda Gopakumaraya Govindaya Namo Namaha. Sarvebhyo Namaha. Welcome to this class. So today we are doing chapter 8, shlokas number 5 to 7. 3 shlokas today. In the last class, we did 4 shlokas, the first 4 shlokas of the 8th chapter. And I'm going to very quickly recap and summarize what we learned there. At the beginning of the 8th chapter, Arjuna spoke 2 shlokas, asking Krishna questions. He asked 7 questions in those 2 shlokas. These questions came because at the end of the 7th chapter, in the last 2 shlokas of the 7th chapter, Sri Bhagavan said something. He made some points, but he didn't explain. He mentioned some terms and made a statement, but he didn't give any explanation. So logically, those questions remained in Arjuna's mind. In the beginning of 8th chapter, he raised those questions. So what did he ask? In the first 2 shlokas, Arjuna says, Kim tat brahma, kim adhyatmam, kim karma purushottama, adibhutam cha kim proktam, adidaivam kim uchyate, adiyagya katham koatra, dehesmin madhusudana, prayana kale cha katham, jneyosi niyatatmapihi. This is what Arjuna asks. He asks 7 questions, and in response to those questions, Sri Bhagavan answers one by one. 6 of them pertain to the meanings of 6 different terms. So first term is Brahma or Brahman. In English, we say Brahman. The second term is Adhyatma. Okay, Brahman here in my screen has become grayed out. I don't know why it got grayed out. It was meant to be black only. So Brahman refers to the Supreme Being, and it can also sometimes refer to the Jivatma, the living being. In Vedanta philosophy, the word Atma refers to living being. And there are 2 types of Atma. One is called the Paramatma, the other is the Jivatma. Now, the interpretation of Advaita says that there is only one being who sometimes is also known as Jivatma. Actually, that one being is Brahman, but that Brahman, under the influence of illusion, thinks of itself sometimes as Jivatma. But when that illusion is removed by appropriate tapasya or whatever, then that Jivatma realizes that it was always only Brahman. There's only that same one living being. But apart from Advaita, the other several schools of Vedanta, like Visishta Advaita, Advaita, Chintya Bheda Bheda, Shuddha Advaita, and so on, all of them say that no, Paramatma and Jivatma are different from each other. They are never one. There are 2 types of beings. One is Paramatma, the Jivatma, and they never become one. The Jivatma, even after getting mukti, after realizing its own nature and self, always remains distinct from the Paramatma. So this is multiple different interpretations of Vedanta. Okay, so this is the first term, Brahman, also known as the Atman. The second term is Adhyatma, which refers to the Jivatma. According to some interpretations, can also refer to one's own intrinsic nature, Swabhava, according to other interpretations. The third word is Karma. Karma refers to the Jivatma's existence in samsara, material existence. Or in another interpretation, it refers to the leftover bad karma that the Jivatma is yet to experience, also called as Anushaya. The fourth term is Adibhuta. Adibhuta refers to the material energy, which is also called as Jadavastu. Jadavastu is this matter which we are experiencing in this material world, our body. Everything we see around us is matter. And that matter has no eternal property. It is something that's always transforming. It is changing, it decays, it's destructible, etc. In contrast to the Atman or Brahman, which has no destruction, which never changes, which always stays in one place. It is not attached to space. It's independent of space. Then Adhidaiva. Adhidaiva refers to the universal form of Sri Bhagavan, which consists of all the devas. That's why it's called Adhidaiva. Then Adhiyagya. refers to the Paramatma inside each living being, who inspires the living being to perform different types of yajna, worship, and also rewards the living being for performing that yajna. That's called Adi Yajna. So these 6 terms are answered by Sri Bhagavan. Says Aksharam Brahma Paramam, Swabhavodhyatma Muchyate, Bhuta Bhavaodbhavaksharo, Bhuta Bhavaodbhavakaro, Visargha Karma Samnitaha, Adibhutam Ksharo Bhavaha, Purushashchadi Daivatam, Adi Yajnyoham Evatra, Dehe Deha Bhritamvara. So these are the 3rd and 4th shloka of the 8th chapter of Bhagavad-Gita. So these 4 shlokas we studied in the last class. And now, among the 7 questions that Arjuna asked, 6 have been answered. The 7th question is still left. 7th question was, Prayana kale cha katham jneyosi niyatatmavihi. Prayana kala. Prayana. The word prayana means what? Journey. Prayana means journey or travel, moving from one place to another place. What does prayana kala mean? What movement does it refer to? Does it mean me going from here to my house? Does it mean me going from here to some outstation place? No. Here it refers to, in the Bhagavad Gita, the point of death. At that point, the Jivatma leaves the body and goes somewhere else. Right? So that is what prayana kala refers to. The journey that the Jivatma makes when the Jivatma leaves that body, one body, in one lifetime, and goes to another body. That prayana. So the question was, at that point of time, when the Jivatma is leaving the body and going to another body, Katham, how? Jneyosi, how can you be known? Oh Krishna, oh Bhagavan, how can you be known? Niyata Atmabihi. Niyata Atmabihi means one who has controlled his mind, disciplined his mind. Okay, that is mentioned there. It goes without saying that if somebody has not disciplined his mind anyway, that question is useless. He can't remember Bhagavan at that time, right? Even if he remembers Bhagavan, it will be probably by fluke only. But he is interested, Arjuna, and of course, on his, he's acting on our behalf. So we also ought to be interested in the question of, if I manage to control my mind, discipline my mind, then at the point of death, how can I remember Sri Bhagavan? So to answer that question, Sri Bhagavan speaks the next shloka, the 5th shloka of the 8th chapter. Sri Bhagavan says, Antakale chamameva. I'll invoke the pointer. Antakale chamameva smaran muktva kalevaram yah prayati mad-bhavam yati nasti atra samshayaha. So first he says that Antakale, Antakalaha means prayana kala, the last moment of one's life. Cha mameva, only me. Mam means me. Mameva, only me. Smaran. So smaran is a word in continuous present tense. In Sanskrit, it's called shatru pratyaya. Remembering, running, going, eating, sleeping, talking, like that. So continuous present. Smaran muktva, after giving up kalevaram, after giving up one's body. Yah prayati, one who travels. Sa mad-bhavam yati. He attains my bhav. Mad-bhavam yati means he attains my bhava. He goes to my bhav. Nasti atra samshayaha. There is no doubt about this. Na atra samshayaha asti. Nasti atra samshayaha. There is no doubt in what I am saying. That's what Sri Bhagavan says. So he's saying that at the point of death, if one remembers him at the time of leaving one's body, then that person will surely attain his bhav. What does that word bhav mean? We will look at that now. Okay. So in the translation, I've written it like this. One who, at the end of their life, leaves the body thinking only of me, attains my existence. So the word bhav, one translation is my existence, where I am staying, that place. Okay. Another meaning of the word bhav is swabhav, my nature. Okay. Different ways that can be interpreted. But both those interpretations are similar, because attaining his existence is synonymous with attaining his nature. Because unless we have his nature, we cannot attain his abode. We can't go to his place where he is. Only if you have his nature, or only if we have his nature, we get the eligibility, the ticket to enter his place. So we will see what that nature is. There is a very brief description of that nature. I'm just bringing it up. So both attaining his nature and attaining his abode are correlated, or they happen concurrently. There is a co-occurrence of them. There is no doubt about this. This is a fact. This is to be taken as tattva. There is no debate on this. Okay, that's what Sri Bhagavan says. Now let's look at commentary. So I have actually now enlarged the commentary so that people at the back, Gaurav, can you see it? Is it visible? This letter on the screen. Okay. Now, this is Vishwanath Chakravarti's commentary, Sarartha Varshini. Prayana kale katham gyayosi ityasya uttaramaha anta kale cha iti. This shloka is spoken to answer his 7th question. Mameva, only me, smaranna iti, mat smaranaveva mat jnanam. Arjuna's question was, how can you be known? How can we have knowledge about you at the point of death? Arjuna's question was not, how can we come to you? Arjuna is not yet, thinking that going to Sri Bhagavan is some kind of a relevant goal. It should be the purpose of life. He is not yet thought like that. He is only interested in knowing about Bhagavan. Because in the 7th chapter, what was the 7th chapter about? The 7th chapter's topic was about knowing about Bhagavan. So all the time Bhagavan said that I am very difficult to know. A lot of people try to know me, but only a few people actually get to know me. And finally he said, nobody really understands me completely. Right? He said all that. So all the topic was about knowing him. So naturally, Arjuna's question was, how can we know you? When we are living, we can know you in some way. You're told all about that. But at the point of death, how can we know you? Right? So now Sri Bhagavan is not directly saying how we can know him. He's saying remembering him. He's talking about remembering him at the point of death. So Vishwanath Chakravarti is pointing out that his remembrance is synonymous with knowing him. Remembering him at the point of death is equivalent to knowing him at the point of death. That is called knowing him. Thinking about him, fully absorbed in him, and only him. You're thinking only about him at the point of death. That is knowing him, equal to knowing him. Saying mat smaranameva mat jnanam. Natu ghatapatadiriva aham kenapi tattvato jnatum shakyaha iti bhava. That is, he says, ordinary material objects like ghata. Ghata means what? A pot. Bartan, pot. Right? Pata. Pata means what? Cloth. Pata means a cloth. Ghata pata. So this phrase ghata pata is used in Nyaya, Vedanta philosophy very often to refer to material objects in general. Instead of saying a material object, they use ghata pata. Word ghata pata is used. Ghata patadi riva. Ghata patadi means all material objects. Just like material objects can be understood thoroughly. Natu ghatapatadi riva aham kenapi tattvato gyatum shakyaha iti bhavaha. Means you are asking how you should know me, but just like understanding matter, you can know matter thoroughly, right? You can write volumes of books on how this is made up of so many chemicals, so many atoms, its molecular structure, what is the grain structure. So many things can be understood about a material object. But Sri Bhagavan cannot be understood to that extent that you can understand a material object. Because he had said this in the 7th chapter also. So don't worry about knowing him completely, just worry about remembering him. That's the point he's trying to make. Natu ghatapatadi riva kenapi tattvato gyatum shakyaha iti bhava. That is why Sri Bhagavan is not telling how to know him here. He's telling how to remember him. And remembering him is equal to knowing him. Smarana rupa jnanasya prakarastu chaturdasha shloke vakshyate. So then, how do we remember him? In what way should we remember him? So Sri Vishwanath Chakravarti says that this actually is also touched upon in the 14th shloka of the 18th chapter. 8th chapter, sorry, we are in the 8th chapter now. In the 14th shloka of the 8th chapter, 8.14. So what is that shloka, 8.14? He doesn't mention that shloka here, but I will tell you. In the 14th shloka, Sri Bhagavan says, Ananya chetaha satatam yomam smarati nityashaha tasyaham sulabha partha nitya yuktasya yogina. Says one who is ananya chetaha means he doesn't have an attachment to anything other than me. His mind is attached only to me. Satatam yomam smarati nityashaha means always. Satatam means repeatedly. Satatam nityashaha on a daily basis, repeatedly remembers only me. So in the sadhana stage, when we are doing sadhana bhakti, then we have to discipline the mind. Okay, it's just like I give the example of going to the gym. If you go to the gym, then you just don't go to the gym, and just because you went to the gym, the body doesn't build. You're supposed to do some exercises, right? And you define, okay, I'll do exercise 1, I'll do so many sets, so many repetitions. Exercise 2, I'll do so many sets, so many repetitions. In between the 2 exercises, I'll give so many minutes break. You set a schedule. In exactly the same manner, when we do bhakti sadhana also, we perform with a schedule. At this point of time, I will do japa. At this point of time, I will do puja. At this point of time, I will go to the temple. At this point of time, I'll do this activity. There are numerous activities in bhakti. It includes Shastra Adhyan, like what we are doing now. We are studying the Shastra. So each of them is defined and done in a well-defined, scheduled manner, in a repetitive manner. Like we are now doing this once a week. Okay. Similarly, somebody will do it once a day or twice a day. So repetitively doing it. Ananya cheta satatam yomam smarati nityashaha. Is tasya aham sulabha partha. For such a person, I am easy to attain. Sulabha. Tasya aham sulabha, O partha. Nitya yuktasya yogina. Such a person who is always engaged in my service, always connected with me. Okay, that is the 14th shloka. We will come to the shloka again and study it in more detail. I'm just mentioning it because he touched upon it. This is what Sri Vishwanath Chakravarti explains. Now we'll go to Baladeva's Gita Bhushana Bhashyam. He is saying something very similar, so I'll go through it very quickly. So it is Prayana Kale Katham Gyayosi Ityasya Uttaramaha Antayiti. Atra Smaranatmakena Jnanena Gyayaha Bhavanna mad-bha upalambhanam cha tatphalam prayachyami ityuktam. Again, he is saying that here smaranam is to be taken as jnanam, smaranatmaka jnanam. And he says, being in that situation, always remembering him in that situation, mad-bha upalambhanam cha tatphalam prayachyami. I reward the person with my bhav, my existence, coming to my existence, etc. Tatra mad-bhavam, mad-swabhavam ityartha. So Baladeva says that bhava refers to swabhava. Yata aham apahata papmatvadi gunashtaka visishta swabhavaha tadrishaha saha matsmarta bhavati iti. Saying yata, just like aham, me, I, apahata papmatvadi gunashtaka visishta. Gunashtaka, the Atma is said to have 8 qualities. Gunashtakam. Gunashtakam means a set of 8 qualities. Atma is defined to have a set of 8 qualities. What are those 8 qualities? The 8 qualities are given in the Chandogya Upanishad. You may not be able to see this, but I will read it out for you. In the Chandogya Upanishad, this is explained like this. Ya Atma apahata papma vijaro vimrityuhu vishoko vichigatso apipasaha satyakamaha satyasankalpaha. I've given the English translation also. This Atma is apahata papma, means his sinfulness does not exist. Not just sins do not exist. Pap means sin. Papa karma, pap. So the 2 ways of talking about it. One is, jo paap humne kiya hai, uska phal humko bhogna padta hai. So there is papa phala in the prarabdha or aprarabdha form. And that phalam, that papa phalam will sometime fructify. And we have to experience that. That is one way to talk about papa. Another way to talk about it is the mentality of papa, which is like the thought process, the mentality, the tendency, the vasana to do papa. They're attracted to papa. Cheating somebody. Most common papa is telling lies, cheating, trying to get the better of, or stealing something. Right? That's called steya. Steya means stealing. Stealing somebody else's property. If I find something, I know it belongs to someone else. It's definitely not mine. I can recognize that it's not mine. But nobody is looking at me. I just pick it up and go. That is called stealing. Similarly, telling a lie. You want to get something done, just tell some lie. So easy, right? Then it will be done. So this is papa. And bigger papa, of course, is going and harming somebody physically, killing somebody, or torturing somebody. What is that? Bhasad. You told me about it a few days back. Right? So we know all about that, right? That's also pap. It's done as fun. I know you think it is fun, but in some other way, it's also seen as pap. Okay, whatever it is. that mentality to do pap. That's called apahata papma. Papma means a person who has the mentality of doing pap. Okay, apahata papma. Vijaraha means one who does not have jara. Vigata jara yasmat saha. Who does not become old. Old age is not there. In the last chapter, we read about how old age is a very difficult time, right? So that is for the body. But because we identify with our body, when we become old, we also suffer. When the body suffers, we also suffer. But the Atma, the pure Atma, that is each of us is a pure Atma, the living being, has no old age. Vijaraha. Similarly, Sri Bhagavan also has no old age. Vimrityuhu, no death, free from death. Vishoka. Shoka means lamentation. Vishoka means no lamentation. Vijigatsaha. Vijigatsaha is one who is free from hunger, does not feel the need for eating. Jigatsa or bubuksha means hunger, free from that. Apipasa. Apipasaha. Pipasa means thirst, free from thirst. Satyakama. Satyakama means one who desires something, and merely by desiring that, that thing happens. He doesn't have to go and do it. Just like Sri Bhagavan, he desires. It is said that when we say Sri Bhagavan is the creator of this world, if you go deeper into what is meant by he is a creator, because if you say he's a creator, then the papa punya of creation should also be attached to him. No. His creation happens by his thinking. He thinks that let this world happen, and then the world manifests. His energies, they enact it out. He doesn't do anything. He just thinks. So Satya Kama, whatever he thinks should happen, just happens. So the pure Atma is like that. When the Atma thinks that something should happen, and the Atma knows what to think also. It won't arbitrarily think something, right? Because it's free from pap also. It won't think something that is wrong. Similarly, it's free from the desire for punya also. So it won't think something that is pertaining to its own enjoyment, material enjoyment. It knows what to think, and when it thinks that thing, that's happen. And finally, Satya Sankalpa. Satya Sankalpa is one who is able to make his will into a reality. So if Bhagavan wills something, that will never remain a will only. It becomes a reality. So these are the 8 properties or 8 gunashtaka. They are called the gunas. Here guna means quality. Gunashtaka Vishishta. So Sri Bhagavan is Gunashtaka Vishishta. So he says, Yata aham apahata papmadi Gunashtaka Vishishta Vishishta Swabhavaha. Just like my Swabhava has this nature, I'm free from all these things and I'm having all these 8 qualities. This person who remembers me at the time of death also attains these 8 qualities. Means he becomes free from his attachment to the body and comes to that existence where he can experience these 8 qualities. Okay. Of course, Sri Bhagavan has many, many more qualities also, which are described elsewhere. But these 8 are fundamental qualities of the Atma that is common to both Bhagavan and the Jivatma, Paramatma and Jivatma. Okay, now we will go forward. So having said that, if you remember me at the time of death, then you will certainly come to me. You will get my existence. Next, Sri Bhagavan generalizes. He makes a general statement. Because the question comes that, okay, you talk about remembering you and coming to you, but what if somebody remembered something else? Will that determine where they go? Where will they go? That question naturally comes, isn't it? You spoke about yourself, but what about in general? Most people don't think about you when they die. What happens to them? So now Sri Bhagavan gives a generalization. Okay, so as PhD students, the word generalization is a very important word for you, right? So now we will see a generalization. Sri Bhagavan says in the 6th shloka of the 8th chapter, Yam yam vapi smaran bhavam tyajati ante kalevaram tyajatyante kalevaram tam tam eva iti kaunteya sada tad bhava bhavitaha. Yam yam, which, literally translating it, okay? Or whatever. In English, you say whatever. Vapi, that va is used saying that in general, like we say, for example, we give an particular example and then we say more generally. We want to make a general statement. So vapi means more generally, smaran, remembering, bhavam, whatever, bhav, whatever existence, whichever bhav, yam yam bhavam, whatever bhav you remember, tyajati ante kalaivaram, at the point of death, the point of leaving your body, you remember whatever and leave the body. Tam tam eva eti. Evaiti is to be split as eva plus eti. Eti means goes. Tam tam eva eti. That particular thing, that person will attain. Whatever one thinks of at the time of death, that particular thing, that person will attain. O Kaunteya, Arjuna, sada tad bhava bhavitaha. Because that person is sada, all the time in his life, he has been thinking about that, or he has been absorbed in that. That has dominated his mind consciousness. Sada tad bhava bhavitaha. During his lifetime, that has dominated his consciousness, that has dominated his mind. So he's linking the two. He says, when you are thinking about something all your life, naturally, you're bound to think of that when you die also. Makes sense, isn't it? All the time you're thinking of something. It could be your own son. Maybe you're very attached to your son. Maybe it could be something that you did not get in your life, but you always wanted to get. And you're always thinking about, regretting about that thing. Right? So now, general statement, or more generally, O Kaunteya, one attains only that which one always thinks about and desires, and remembering which one leaves the body at the end of one's life. One gets that. So let's again read the commentaries very quickly. It's very short. Shri Vishwanath Chakravarti's commentary says, Mameva smaranna mam prapnoti itivat mad anyamapi smaranna anyat mad anyamapi smaranna mad anyameva prapnoti ityaha aham yam iti. Tasya bhavena anuchintanena. Bhavena means anuchintanena. Bhavitaha vasitaha. He resided like that. Vasitaha means he was always residing in that manner. His mind was residing in that bhav. Tanmayi bhutaha. Tanmayi bhutaha means he was absorbed in that. Tanmaya. Tan means tat. Tat means that. Tanmaya means absorbed in that. Tanmayi bhutaha. He was fully absorbed in that all his life. Therefore, at the point of death, he thought about that. Shri Baladeva says, Nacha mat smarta eva mad-bhava myati iti niyamaha. Kintu anya smarta api anya bhava myati iti aha yam iti. Bhavam padartham. So here, Shri Baladeva says, bhava refers to anything. Padartha means anything. Anything which can be described with a pada, with a word, is called padartha. Padasya artha padartha. Tam eva bhava dehatyagottaram eva iti eti. After giving up one's body, one attains that thing. Yata Bharata dehante mrigam chintayan mrigo abhut. A king by name Bharata, Raja Rishi, dehante, at the point of death, he remembered a deer. Mrigam chintayan, remembering a deer, he left his body and then he became a deer in his next life. Antima smritischa purva smriti vishaya eva bhavati ityaha sada iti. What one remembers at the point of death is a direct function, or is directly connected to what one remembered during his life. Purva smriti vishaya. Antima smritischa purva smriti vishaya eva. It is not that in my life I remembered so many different, I enjoyed myself in different ways. And I said, okay, Shri Bhagavan says that if you remember me at the time of death, you will come to me. That's all you want, no? Remember Bhagavan at the point of death. Okay, so I'll keep it. I put it up there. So I have decided when I'm going to die. At that point, I'll remember him. Last 1 hour, I can remember him. Otherwise, there's no point remembering him. What is the big deal? So this kind of thinking will not work. Only if you think about it all the time. So tad bhava bhavitaha, tat smriti vasita chattitaha. So this is the general statement. And therefore, Bhagavan puts this along with what he had said earlier. He says in the 7th shloka of the 8th chapter, Tasmat, therefore, sarveshu kaleshu ma manusmara yudhyacha mai arpita mano buddhihi mame vaishyasi asamshayaha. Tasmat sarveshu kaleshu ma manusmara yudhyacha mai arpita mano buddhihi mame vaishyasya samshayaha. Tasmat means therefore, Means based on what I told you in the last two statements, last two shlokas. Therefore, sarveshu kaleshu, at all times, ma manusmara, remember me, yudhyacha, and fight. Okay. In Arjuna's case, the word yudhya, fight, means actually fight. This is Kshatriya there. He's standing there, he's supposed to be fighting, right? Instead of fighting, he's now discussing philosophy with the charioteer. Is that what he should be doing? No way, right? So in Arjuna's case, he should be only fighting there, actually fighting. But in our case, yudhya should be understood as a metaphor. We should do our duty, right? Doing our duty also sometimes is like fighting only, isn't it? In this world, sometimes doing our duty also involves some kind of fighting. Not fighting with another person. I'm not talking about that fighting. I'm talking about fighting with our own tendencies, right? Like laziness, for example. Very common tendency, common to all of us, is laziness, right? We are all from different backgrounds, different religions, different genders. Everything is different. Age also is different. But some things are common, right? And one of them is laziness, the tendency to procrastinate, not do what we are supposed to do, right? So this fight, yudhya, very much applies to us. We have to constantly fight with the mind, our own mind, which says, why do it today? Do it tomorrow. Why it's so difficult? It's painful, right? This is so boring. The subject is so boring. Why, read it last. After everything is over, read that. So this kind of thinking, yudhyacha, fight. Life is a fight. Mai arpita mano buddhihi. One whose intelligence, a person whose mind and intelligence, manaha and buddhi, mai arpita, offered to me, mameva eshyasi. If you are like that, then you will come to me only. Mameva eshyasi. You will come to me only. Asamshayaha. Once again, he says. Earlier also he said, there is no doubt about this. Again, he's saying asamshayaha. There is no doubt in what I'm saying. Because Arjuna, if you see Arjuna's mentality in this whole Bhagavad-gita, not his eternal nature, but his mentality when he is speaking the Bhagavad-gita, or when he is hearing the Bhagavad-gita from Sri Bhagavan, is a character in doubt. He's asking so many questions. And if you look at the nature of the questions, if you see, is this question relevant here? He's supposed to be, he's saying that Krishna, you're my guru. Tell me what I should do. After saying Krishna is guru, Krishna is saying, get up and fight. Now he's saying, for example, he's saying here, get up and fight. But he's not fighting. He's not getting up and fighting. Instead, he's asking one more question. He's going on asking question after question. What does it mean? It means that in his mind, there is a doubt. He's always full of doubts. Doubtful. The Shastra is saying something, but we have doubt on the Shastra. Does it really apply? Will it really work? People are saying this. My grandfather also said, now teacher is saying it. So does it really, this all sounds good. Sunne ke liye acha lagta hai, but does it really work? So he's saying asamshaya, don't doubt it. Just follow. I'm saying it, just do it. It will work. It will definitely work. Therefore, at all times, think of me and fight. With your mind and intelligence devoted to me, you will attain me only without doubt. Okay, so this is the 7th shloka, and we will quickly see the commentary is getting shorter and shorter because it's very obvious. Sri Vishwanath Chakravarti says, Manaha sankalpatmakam buddhihi vyavasayatmika. Mind should be one with sankalpa, means the mind should be made up. We say, make up your mind. Sankalpa means making up the mind. So the mind should be such that we are able to make up the mind every day, get up in the morning and say, I will do this. And make a list of things and just do them. Buddhihi vyavasayatmika. Vyavasayatmika means one that is firm. Intelligence is very firm. It's not wavering. Okay, sometimes the intelligence says, okay, let's freak out for some time here. All the time doing this is not good. So my intelligence is on proper rails. It's going on clear rails. Vyavasayatmika. Shri Baladeva says, Yasmat purva smritireva antima smritihi hetuhu, antima smriti hetuhu, tasmat tvam sarveshu kaleshu, pratikshanam, every moment, ma manusmara, remember me, yudhyasvacha, fight, loka sangrahaya yuddhadini swa uchitani karmani kuru. Loka sangraham is a concept. It is taught in the 3rd chapter also. Loka sangraha means that even when somebody is not obliged to do something, by virtue of his being very qualified, or beyond the category in which people are supposed to do something. Okay. For example, let us say somebody is a very in a very high position in a company or something, and he goes to the canteen of that company. All the employees are standing in a line. Now, being the CEO of the company, people will immediately come running to him and offer him a chair, and they'll bring a plate of food to him. But the CEO says that, no, I don't want all this. I will also stand in the line along with the other employees, and I will take the plate just like they are taking. So he goes and joins the end of the line. And he says, you people go ahead and do your work. Don't look at me. Don't pay any attention to me. Now, why would he want to do that? Why would some CEO want to do that? I've heard that when Narayana Murthy was the CEO of Infosys, he used to do like that. People who worked in Infosys told me this. Because at that time, Narayana Murthy was a CEO. This was in the 90s and early 2000s, the first decade of 2000. Why was he doing like that? Because he felt that, of course, his personal character also was a character of a humble person. That's no doubt. But also, it inspires others to be disciplined. The moment he himself is following discipline, the moment he does it, nobody else will think of violating the discipline. So when whatever yadyad acharati sreshtaha tattadeva itaro janaha, whatever the great people do, the ordinary people follow them. They do that. They justify. See, he is doing it, so I'll also do it. So if the CEO breaks the rules, then the people lower down will see that and say that, "Arey yaar, wo bhi nahi karta hai, to hum kyun kare?" Right? Main kyun karu? So this feeling will come, and that is called loka sangraha. Loka sangraha means for the sake of inspiring the others, for the benefit of others, follow. So he's telling Arjuna that even though Arjuna, maybe you are a very elevated personality, spiritually you are very advanced. And for you, you don't need to do the normal karma yoga that others have to do. You're already beyond that. You don't have to do your normal karma. Thereby, from one perspective, it makes sense if you say that you can leave this yuddha and go away. You don't need the kingdom. Already it's very clear. You are not a selfish person. You are not here to fight for the kingdom for yourself. All that is very clear. And that's the argument that Arjuna also gave in the first chapter. But for the sake of loka sangraha, because what will people think if you now go away from here? You have to show them that a Kshatriya's duty is this. Kshatriya has to protect dharma. Kshatriya's job is to protect dharma, and the people standing in front of you are the people who have done adharma. And you are supposed to fight against them, remove them from this world, and establish dharma. That is loka sangraha. So this concept of loka sangraha is extremely important. It starts in the Bhagavad-gita. It starts in the 3rd chapter, and now again Baladeva reminds us in the 8th chapter, saying that yudhyasva. Shri Bhagavan says, okay, you don't need it, but do it for the sake of the society. Evam mayarpita mano buddhihi tvam mameva eshyasi natu anyat ityatra sandeha ma abode. So you will definitely come to me if you always have your mind fixed in me. So having said this, we will now go to the story of the King Bharata, which was just mentioned by Shri Vishwanath Chakravarti, right? Or Baladeva. He mentioned the example of Bharata, who was a classic example, a case study, you can say, in the Bhagavatam. The Bhagavatam is full of case studies of different kings or saints. And each of them, they highlight some very deep Vedantic principle. So the story of Bharata highlights many principles, and one of them is what we have been discussing today. So we will talk about Bharata. So who was this Raja Rishi Bharata? Bharata Raja Rishi was a very, very famous personality. The Bhagavatam, in the Panchama Skanda of Bhagavatam, in these adhyayas, Saptama Adhyaya, Ashtama Adhyaya, and actually many more adhyayas, but today I'm focusing only on these two, and the rest of the story I will tell in the next, and probably the next session after that. Bharata Maharaj, or Bharata Raja Rishi, was the son of an incarnation of Vishnu by name Rishabhadeva. So Vishnu has many, many incarnations. And we, of course, as children, we are taught that Vishnu had 10 incarnated, Dasavatar Vishnu, right? That's only one list, which was first described by Jayadeva Goswami. But apart from that, Vishnu has infinite incarnations. He comes again and again, just like waves in an ocean. So one of them was known as Rishabhadeva. Vishnu appeared as Rishabhadeva, and he performed many different activities. And eventually, before the end of his avatar, he also started a particular dharma called the Jain dharma, a particular form of religion called Jainism. Today's Jainism traces its origin to that Rishabhadeva. That Rishabhadeva's son was a Rajarishi by name Bharata. He had, I think, only one son's name I could find there in the Bhagavatam. Probably he had other sons or wives, but they are not mentioned there. Probably they were not relevant in that case study, so they are not mentioned. Now, this Bharata was, because he's the son of Vishnu himself, was highly qualified, extremely exalted personality, not an ordinary personality at all. So it is described that he had all the great qualities of a Mahan. He was a Mahabhagavata. He was Bhakta of Vishnu. And he performed his activities in such a manner that everybody in his kingdom was inspired to also live like saintly people. This whole kingdom existed, just like we say Rama Rajya. Bharata Rajya was like that. And the Bhagavatam says that this Bhumi is called Bharata Varsha because of this king. Bharatasya idam or Bharatasya ayam Bharata Varsha. This Bharata Varsha is named after him. That is what the Bhagavatam says. In the Mahabharata, the name for this place called Bharata is attributed to a different person. That is a King Bharata, who was the son of Shakuntala and Dushyanta, right? It's a different story there. So both probably are great kings, and both of them contributed to this name. So in the Bhagavatam, this Bharata's name is given. All right. Now, whatever it is, this Bharata was a very great personality, and it's said that he married one wife. I think he had only one wife because only that wife's name and her sons are given. Her name was Panchajani. And Panchajani had 5 sons. Okay, the word Panchajani also indicates one who gave birth to 5 sons. So she gave birth to 5 sons, and they were all like their father. Very highly qualified, very noble sons. So it is said that he ruled for 1 crore years. That's what the Bhagavatam says, a very long time. Whatever it is, if it's not exactly 1 crore, it was a very, very long time. He ruled this earth, the entire earth. Before him, this land was known as Ajanabha Varsha. There was a king by name Ajanabha in his dynasty, far above him, and it was named like that. But after him, this was called Bharata Varsha. So after ruling for a very long time, it is said that he gave up his kingdom and he went to the forest because he wanted to devote himself completely to Sri Bhagavan. His mind, his intelligence, just like Sri Bhagavan says, Mai arpita mano buddhihi. Devote your mind and intelligence completely to me. So following that principle, he went to the forest. He goes to the forest at an advanced stage, hands over the kingdom to his 5 sons, and goes to the forest and lives alone in the forest. He builds a kutia for himself, a small hut for himself. And he goes to a place, a very, very sacred place, which exists even today. It's called Pulastya Pulaha Ashrama. It's called Pulastya Pulaha Ashrama. And this place exists today in Nepal. It was part of India at that point of time. It's today in Nepal. It is situated in the Himalayas. And the river Gandaki, one branch of Gandaki river, flows by this place even today. I went to Google Maps and verified it. So this place called Pulastya Pulaha Ashrama is a sacred Tirthasthan. Even today, pilgrims go to this place and they perform their pilgrimage and they do puja and so on. So this place is a very holy place, and this forest there, Bharat Rajarishi went to that place and he performed his tapasya there. So he would perform, it's described that he would perform very, very, very sincere devotion to Bhagavan. He would worship the Surya Bhagavan, Surya Dev as Narayana. He would take bath in the Gandaki 3 times a day. And he would perform different types of practices of bhakti, like doing japa, chanting different mantras, remembering Bhagavan in different ways, doing his puja, aradhana, etc., having his food and so on. So living like this, he was destined to go to Sri Bhagavan at the point of his death. Okay? But the story is not as simple as that. There's a twist in the story. So what happens in the story? So one day, when Sri Bharat, the Bharata Rajarishi, has gone after several years of living in the forest, after a very long time of living in that state of mind, living alone, nobody else around him, he goes to the river Gandaki and he completes his bath and does his puja there. And he just sits there, enjoying the peace and tranquility. There is nobody around, just the sounds of the birds, the clean, pure river, right? And as he's enjoying that tranquil morning, all of a sudden he sees a deer on the other side of the river, a female deer. She's come there to drink water. Okay, it's actually a black buck. It's called Krishna Mrigam. In English today, that form of deer is called a black buck or a black antelope. It's found all over India. It's found in Nepal also, black buck. Okay. So he goes there and he sees this black buck, a female black buck, who has come there to drink water in the river. So as this deer is drinking water, suddenly, all of a sudden, a sound of a lion roaring was heard in the forest in the background. Somewhere in the distance, a lion, maybe the lion was disturbed by something, suddenly roars very loudly. So hearing that loud roar, this deer, see, the deer by itself is a species which is always very, very scared. Even when the deer is walking, the deer is always looking here and there, thinking that something will come and attack it. It's always suspicious about some enemy, some prey, some predator coming and attacking it. So all the time in the deer's mind, there is fear. And suddenly the sound of this lion comes. The deer reacts instantly. Instinctively, the deer reacts without thinking and jumps across the river. And in that state of mind, because it's filled with fear, the deer is carrying, it happens to be carrying a baby in its womb. It is pregnant. It's a pregnant deer. And the baby is almost ready to be delivered. In that stage, the deer is jumping across this river in a state of fear. It has a premature delivery. The baby comes out of its womb and falls in the river. So even as this deer is leaping across the river like this, the baby comes out of its womb and falls into the river. So Bharata, he sees all this in front of him. Now keep in mind that he is a sage. He is now a king who has become a sage. His mind is very pure, very, very soft-hearted. So whatever philosophy you know, your soft-heartedness sometimes takes over. So he jumps into the river. The mother is gone. The mother jumps, it reaches the other side, and it stumbles, and finally finds a cave. And it's bleeding very profusely because it's given a premature birth. And it falls in the cave and it dies. So Bharata jumps into the river. He sees this small baby, very, very small, struggling there. So he jumps in, he picks it up, and he brings it out. And he sees the mother has died. He can't unite the baby with the mother. So he takes it to his kutia. Okay? So from that point onwards, Bharata's life changes. So he starts nursing that deer. It's just a newborn baby. So he starts taking care of it. He provides it a place to sleep. He starts feeding it with milk, with leftover of fruits, and so on. And slowly, the deer grows up. That small little deer grows up in his house. It becomes like his child. Now, as this happens, Bharata realizes, or he doesn't realize actually, the Bhagavatam describes, and we realize who are reading this, that Bharata, he has become attached to that deer. Now, the Bhagavatam describes this and says, it points out, this is the same Bharata who brought up 5 children, who lived with a very beautiful wife. He enjoyed a very long time in his kingdom in the company of a very beautiful wife with so many servants, smart children, etc., etc., and gave them all up, completely gave them up, gave up all attachment to them, removed them from his mind, went to the forest, brought Krishna into his mind completely, and now brought deer into his life. And now slowly, the deer starts occupying his mind. Everything he does, the deer is present. It's his baby. There's nobody else. There's no one else for him to say, please take care of the deer. Only he is there. If he doesn't take care of the deer will die. He can't allow that to happen. So with extreme compassion in his heart, he makes sure that the deer does not have any small thing also missing in its life. Everything that the deer needs, and even more than what it needs, he provides. And the deer becomes so much of his, it comes into his life so much that, for example, when he's sitting and trying to do puja, the deer comes and snatches away something and runs away, like a small child. It's like in our house, how does a child behave? When you're trying to do something, the child will come, take away your pen or your mouse and run away. And then you have to go behind it, bring it back. The child will not give it to you, right? And all that contributes to the sweetness of the child in your life. The child becomes sweeter and sweeter as it does these kind of mischievous things. The deer behaves exactly like that. The deer is a mischievous deer. And then the Bhagavatam describes sometimes when the deer did like that, Bharata would scold it. Hey, what are you doing? He would raise his voice. Then the deer would then start sulking like a baby. It's like in our house, when you scold the child will then start sulking. It will go to the corner and sit down. And then you feel bad that you scolded the child. Then you'll go and try to do some samadhan. Say that don't cry, I'll give you something. So the deer also behaves in that manner. It goes and sulks. So all this, what happens? Bharata's heart becomes more and more bound by that deer. The deer enters his life completely, to the extent that he can't spend one moment without the deer. Sri Bhagavan is no longer the prominent thing in his life. Everywhere, anytime he thinks of Sri Bhagavan, he thinks of Sri Bhagavan as that deer, the deer which has come into his life. Bhagavan is forgotten now. All his sadhana stops. So sometimes the deer is missing. It's not there. He can't see it. For several hours, the deer is missing. So when the deer is missing, just like a mother, if a mother has a small child, let's say 3 years, 4 years of age, and the child suddenly is not to be seen. Have you ever seen a situation like that? What happens? Is the mother very peaceful about it? The mother says, "Arey, aa jayega yaar. Koi chinta hi nahi hai. Ye kahin paas mein hoga." No, the mother starts panicking. She'll start asking everybody, where is that? Where is the child? Have you seen him? She'll go here, there, search for him. Right? This is not only for a 3 or 4-year-old child, even for a grown-up. The mother has to keep seeing the child every now and then. Bharata's situation becomes like that. The deer is an animal, right? It sometimes goes to the forest, it's grazing there, it wants to eat something, it comes back. But Bharata does not accept that. He becomes very restless. So he starts behaving like a crazy man when the deer is missing. So in this manner, his days pass by and old age comes upon him. And finally, the Bhagavatam says that death comes to him. Okay, so this is a beautiful deer. You can imagine what his situation is, how it looks like when it grows up. This is a black buck, and it's found all over India. It's a very common animal. It's considered a rare species. At one point of time, because it was so beautiful, people would keep hunting for it. Okay, if you recollect, there's an actor by name Salman Khan. He was once caught for this, right? He was also jailed for hunting black buck. The black buck is considered an endangered species, and it's heavily protected in India by the Wildlife Acts. So anybody does any harm to the black buck, they can be sure they'll end up in the jail. Okay. So now Bharata is at the point of death. Death has come to him. So it is described in the Bhagavatam that just like a snake forces its way into the hole of a mouse. Mice, they make holes in the ground and they go and stay there. And snakes force their way. They know that's where the mice stay. So they go inside the hole and they get their food. Similarly, death enters our life. Death doesn't wait. It doesn't take permission. It doesn't knock on the door. Straight away it comes. And suddenly when it comes, like it came to Bharata, we have to ensure that we think of him, Sri Bhagavan. But what is Bharata thinking about? At that point of time, what does he see? At that point of time, Bharata sees only that deer. He doesn't think of anything else. And it's described in the Bhagavatam just like, this is the exact statement in the Bhagavatam. It says, this is the point of death for Bharata. Tadanimapi, even at that point of time, Parshvavartinam, Atmajam, Iva. Tadanimapi, Parshvavartinam, Atmajam, Iva. Even at that point of time, Bharata did not think of Sri Bhagavan. Instead, just like a normal human being at the time of death, what is he surrounded by? He's surrounded by his relatives. There are his children, maybe his wife or his uncle or whatever. The close people, the people who are close to that person are sitting next to that person, the point of death, and they are trying to probably give him Ganga Jal or something. And some of them are crying because they know that he is going to die. Some of them who are really liking him, they're crying. He is going to now leave the body. So what does Sri Bharata see? Parshvavartinam Atmajamiva, just like a man sees his own sons or daughters sitting next to him. Atmajam iva anushochantam abhivikshamano anushochantam means those who are lamenting. The sons sitting next to one who are lamenting. Just like that, Bharata sees the deer sitting next to him. He sees in his mind, whether it was really sitting or not, Bhagavatam doesn't say. He sees in his perception, there is a deer sitting next to him, crying, shedding tears that my father is going away. He sees that. Bharata sees that with his eyes. Mrigaha eva abhiveshita manaha. Mrige eva abhiniveshita manaha. Because his mind was fully absorbed in the deer, he sees this. Visrijya lokam imam. Saha mrigena. He gave up his body along with the deer. Not only his body, he gave up the deer also, naturally. When a man is giving up his body, not only is he giving up the body, but he gives up all the other things also which are connected to that body, like one's children, the house, the car, all the loans, whatever. Everything that has been taken is also left behind. Everything is given up. Mrigena, saha mrigena kalaivaram. Mritam anu na mrita janmanusmritihi. But one thing he did not give up. What was that? Which all of us give up. When we die, our remembrance of this birth also goes away. We don't remember our birth. We leave behind that also. And wherever we go, we start a fresh memory. That's why in this life, we remember only what we have encountered since the beginning of this birth. Even there, we don't remember since the time of our birth. Maybe since the age of 3 years or so. The first 3 years, we don't recollect, right? First 2 or 3 years, we don't recollect that. Only after that, we recollect. But in the case of Bharata, it was not like that. That's the only way he was different from us. He says, Mritam anu na mrita janmanusmritihi. Means he did not give up that one thing. That came to his rescue. He remembered all that had happened in that lifetime. Along with that memory, giving up everything else, but taking that memory with him, anusmritihi, itaravat, just like other people, mriga shariram avapa. He got the body of a black buck in his next birth. He straight away entered into the womb of a black buck somewhere and became a black buck in his next birth. Okay, so I will stop with this for today. And what happened after that? I will continue in the next class because already I've taken up so much time. We will now listen to your questions and doubts. And we will now make our plans for this lifetime. Yeah. Yes, the fact that he could remember. Okay. That's why it said that dharma eva hato hanti dharmo rakshati rakshitaha. Asmat dharmo na hantavyo mano dharmo hato vadit. That dharma which is protected protects us. Dharma which is destroyed by us destroys us. Therefore, never destroy dharma so that it will never destroy you. That's what this shloka is. A very famous shloka in our Sanskriti. Dharma eva hato hanti. Have you heard of it before? Yes. Those of you who studied in school, Sanskrit in school, you might have heard this shloka. Dharmo rakshati rakshitaha. Really? Okay. Dharmo rakshati rakshitaha, right? The dharma that you protect will protect you. So, Sri Bharat Maharaj or Bharata Raja Rishi was a very devoted bhakta of Bhagavan. He performed sadhana, he upheld dharma throughout his life. But just by some arrangement, maybe not his intention, by his own soft heart, just like Arjuna, for example, is suddenly overcome by the weakness of looking at his relatives. Okay. So we can think that by some divine arrangement, maybe Bharata was overcome by attachment to a deer. But because of the dharma that he practiced, he got the blessing that he will be able to carry forward the memory of what happened in his lifetime. So as he entered the womb of his mother, the new mother, the dear mother, he carried forward, he remembered in that womb all that had happened in that lifetime and why he was now in the womb of the mother. Nobody else is given that memory normally, right? But he was given that. Those online, if you have any questions, you can also ask. Of course, you can ask the question. Yes, I'll come to that. Yes, please. Gaurav.
Which form of
Yes.
of a given form of
That's exactly why he says, Tasmat Sarveshu Kaleshu Ma Manusmara. Remember me at all times. So whichever way we have remembered him all throughout our life, that will appear before us at that point of time. He will come to us in that form at that point of time. So at that point of time, we don't have to think of a form. We don't have to create a form in our mind. He will manifest himself in that form in which we have thought about him all our life. We have worshipped him all our life.
Whenever we are doing work, we should think of Bhagwan. Then at the end, we will appear. But we also do separate puja. So when we are doing work, how do we keep him? How do we smaran during work? For example, puja is different, but when I'm doing work, I should also offer my work to Bhagwan. So that form should continue from does it continue from the same puja or
See, remembering Bhagwan is not only about remembering a particular आकृति, सिर्फ आकृति का स्मरण नहीं. जैसे हम दूसरे लोगों के बारे में सोचते हैं. Suppose I say, does the thought of your mother come to you sometimes in the day? You'll say, yes, I sometimes think of my mother. But when you think of your mother, you may not be only thinking of your mother's appearance. You may think of some work that you have to do for your mother. You may think of something that your mother likes. You may think of something that your mother told you to do that you have to go and complete now. Like that. My mother will be angry. You think about your mother in different ways. Thinking of somebody's physical appearance is not the only way to think about them. Correct? So similarly, when we think about Bhagavan, it's not about trying to force a particular appearance of Bhagavan, a form of Bhagavan in our mind. It is also thinking about what Sri Bhagavan likes, what makes him feel good, what he does not like, what would make him not feel good. Unko ye acha nahi lagega, ye acha lagega. That kind of thinking. Thinking about sometimes some story of Bhagavan that you heard somewhere. When you are encountering a situation, then your memory may go to something that you read somewhere. हाँ, वहाँ भी ऐसे ही दिया था, और इसका यहाँ पर भी connection है. This kind of thinking. So, in general, thinking about Bhagavan is very similar to thinking about anything that we love in this world. How do we think about anything else that we love in this world? Right?
That is the situation. Maybe he saw Bhagwan in that fear. Understanding of what Bhagwan is not.
In Bharata's case, he didn't see Bhagavan in the deer like the way that you are describing. He saw the deer as his dearmost object. The deer became the topmost object in his mind. So to go into the depth of this, what happened to Bharat Maharaj? So again, the more fundamental question here that can be asked is, what should anyone else do? Now we say that Bharata made a mistake and therefore he didn't go to Bhagavan, he became a deer. So then what should the correct person do? What is the correct thing to do? Should we just dump the deer and go away? Suppose a saint was there, a real saint was there who was not going to become a deer in his next life. What would he have done? No, the point is this, that it's not saying don't show compassion. It is saying that when you show compassion, realize that it is not your compassion. It is not you who is protecting the deer. In Bharat Maharaj's mind, his abhiman developed. The word is abhiman here. Galat abhiman. Abhiman is a galat thing by itself. Abhiman means the false upadhi, the understanding that I am the protector. मैं इसका रक्षक हूँ. अभी तक मन में भगवान ही रक्षक हैं. All his life he had developed so much consciousness of Bhagavan. He fully understood that Bhagavan is the only rakshaka for everybody. not me. His Abhiman was almost zero. But now again, that same Abhiman, which was almost become zero, again became normal. The normal Abhiman that all of us have. That I am the protector, I am the doer. मैं करता हूँ, मैं रक्षक हूँ. मेरे बिना इसका जीवन नहीं होगा. ये मर जाएगा. अगर मैं इसका देखभाल नहीं करूंगा तो ये मर जाएगा. सो इसमें मैं हो जो बड़ा हो जाता है, उसमें प्रॉब्लम है. सो देखभाल करना है, प्रेम से देखभाल करना है, फिर भी उसमें अभिमान रहित देखभाल करना है. मन में ऐसा मतलब दिस विचार शुड बी इन द माइंड दैट it is only Sri Bhagavan who is protecting that person, not me. So when I take care of my son or my wife takes care of me or whatever, when we show love towards somebody, we should understand that we are only a nimitta, a small instrument. It's actually Sri Bhagavan who is actually doing whatever that person has to get benefit or otherwise, good or bad. It's that Abhiman that's the problem. Yes. Exactly. So the only Abhiman, or if I have to use the word Abhiman, or whatever man we have, should only be that I am an insignificant particle of dust at the lotus feet of Bhagavan. That's the only thing that's the only identity we should identify with. Nothing else. Our ego should only be that much. Nothing more than that.
So can we see it with this perspective that if Saint Bharat looked at the deer as a form of Narayan, कि Narayan ही मेरे पास है, and now I am serving Narayan. तो उस केस में भी समाधान हो सकता है.
हाँ, if you thought like that, yes. If you thought that Narayana has come to me in this form because he wants to receive my service, and only Narayana, it's not that I am not the protector of this deer. If that had been the case, then even if the deer went away for a few hours in the forest, he would not feel restless. Because वो भगवान की लीला है. भगवान ही इनके रक्षक हैं. ये तो मृग है. ये तो मृग है. एक पशु है. पशु का व्यवहार कैसे होता है? पशु मेरे साथ रहने के लिए नहीं आया है. पशु तो वन में इधर उधर जाता रहता है, टहलता रहता है. वही उसका व्यवहार है. So if the pashu goes into the forest, he will not feel restless. Correct? Why did he feel restless? He didn't think of him as Narayana. Yes.
God can incarnate themselves whenever they want, and then they can vanish as well.
Exactly.
So we will not be attached anytime and every time.
Exactly. Yes, what Anjana was saying is that if he saw the mriga as Pashu, if he saw the mriga as Narayana himself, then he would not think that he has to protect it. And if it went to the forest also, he would think this is Narayana's own Leela. He's himself going somewhere on his own accord. Let him go. When he wants to come, he will come. If he doesn't want to be here, he will not be with me. So he will leave it. There will be no attachment, right? Everything belongs to him. And that's actually the way in which, that's why if even easier than Karma Yoga is Bhakti Yoga. Karma Yoga says, become detached from everything. Become detached from the fruits of your work. But that Abhiman, actually Karma Yoga is training us to overcome that Abhiman that I am the doer of that work. By saying that give up the fruits to that work. That is the purpose of Karma Yoga. But Bhakti Yoga makes it even easier because it gives you an alternate identity as a Bhakta of Bhagavan. I belong to Bhagavan and sab kuch Bhagavan ki hi leela hai. Nothing is mine. I do my work because I'm supposed to do my work as a matter of duty. I do my work as a matter of duty. Because if I don't do my work, then Sri Bhagavan will not be happy with it. Right? He's saying Yudhyasva to Arjuna. He wants me to do my work. Do my work, but beyond my control, if something happens, then I don't worry about it. Within my control, if something happens, I don't take credit for it. Right? Yes, Rakshit.
Take forward the conversation on the form of Sri Bhagavan.
Yes.
In the previous chapter, we also discussed that I think Sri Bhagavan always prefers the one who remembers him in his form, his own form, instead of a formless person.
Who not just remember, see that there it's not about remembrance in every minute, at every moment, in that form. It's about acknowledging that Bhagavan has a form. Fundamentally acknowledging and knowing Bhagavan as one who has a form. Vis-a-vis knowing Bhagavan as something that's just a formless energy, formless consciousness. Yes.
It's a formless person versus a person who has form, then is it very different?
Yes. That is, very broadly speaking, the difference between those who get Sayujya Mukti. So one can still get Mukti thinking of that Bhagavan as Brahma. That ultimate thing, that ultimate Atman is just that consciousness. And I am a part of that. Or I am that. Thinking of that without doing aparat to Bhagavan. If one is able to leave one's body, then one gets that. One gets that mukti whereby one doesn't get a material body again, doesn't take birth again in this material existence, but exists in one's full consciousness permanently. One experiences that sense of happiness because of freedom from misery. That happiness is basically a function of being free from all kinds of klesha. Like even in that shloka, we saw freedom from hunger, freedom from thirst, freedom from old age, freedom from death, lamentation. These are all the different types of suffering that we experience now. So when the Atma is free from that, then he experiences happiness, that happiness. Yes.
Point is Maharaj Bharat got attached to the deer after being so loveless. So I think letting go process is a very difficult process.
Yes, it is.
If you're attached with someone, letting go of that is so difficult. I mean, Maharaj Bharat, who has been ruling for so many years and has been in the hermitage.
Yes. Letting go is a very difficult process. Swapnil was telling us how letting go is a difficult process. Someone like Bharata was highly qualified. He's a Rajarishi, experienced person. Okay, like you can say President of India or President of the US, very experienced person, knows how to rule the whole world. And finally goes to the forest with the courage, so much courage it takes to go and stay after living in so much luxury and power, living alone, living one's own family, living all your servants, everything behind, right? If a poor person does that, then it doesn't look so big, right? But anyway, he had nothing, so he's nothing to leave also. The poor person has a hut, it looked like a rich man, right? But here, a person who's living in the biggest palace on earth suddenly goes and lives in a small hut. Nobody to attend to him, attends to himself, approaching his old age. And that is greatness. But even a person like that can become subject to attachment. Attachment can conquer a person like that. So that is why when we are living, bhakti is the process by which we cultivate attachment to Bhagavan and to what he likes. Right? But that's why bhakti is a sweet process. Bhagavan is very sweet in his nature. Everything about him is sweet. Madhurya. Sweetness is his most defining quality, and love, prema. If you want to define Bhagavan, there are so many qualities, but the most defining quality about Bhagavan is his prem, his nature to love others. So when we come in contact with that love, when we realize that love, then automatically the attachment to him becomes natural. One doesn't have to struggle to love him or struggle to be connected or to remember him. And how do we come to that stage? We come to that stage by this Shravanam Kirtanam, by hearing about him, reading the Shastra. It's only through the Shastra that we have to know him. There is no other way. We should not imagine Bhagavan. We should not imaginarily think that we have become Bhakta of Bhagavan. Right? Instead, we should say that I have to now know how to become a Bhakta. I have to learn from the Shastra by studying the Shastra. It's called Shastra Chakshu. So repeatedly, he says that in the Gita also, he points out how knowledge should be through the Shastra. In the 16th chapter of Gita, towards the end of the 16th chapter, he says that the Shastra should be the pramana. Tasmat Shastram pramanam te karya akarya vyavastitav.
So I understand, sir, that bhakti will be the process of detachment.
In bhakti, automatically attachment to other things goes away with time. As we bring Bhagavan into our life, what disturbs the process of bhakti automatically goes away. Things which we are now attached to. So we don't have to really worry about the pain of leaving them. They go away by themselves. Just like when you switch on the light, you don't have to work hard and remove the darkness from here. There are two things, right? Darkness and light. There are two different words, darkness and light. So they're two padarthas. So if I have to make this room bright, then somebody can suggest a two-step process. The first step, remove all the darkness. Second step, bring all the light inside. Right? But is it a true two-step process? In reality, it's not. There's only one step involved in it. And that one step is just bring the light inside. If you bring the light inside, automatically the darkness will go away. You don't have to work hard and remove the darkness as a separate activity. Exactly in that manner, when we bring Sri Bhagavan into our life, when we bring Krishna into our life, because he is like light, he is like a sun, he's very bright. In fact, in the 11th chapter, because Arjuna doesn't believe that he is so bright, he asks him to show, and he shows his Vishwarupa. Then he says, I can't see this. I'm not able to see this. Please stop it. It's so bright, right? So that when that light comes into our heart, so that light won't come in front of our eyes, so we don't have to worry. It will not be bright. It will come inside our heart. It will brighten up the mind, right? And how do we know it has brightened the mind? We know it because thoughts about Sri Bhagavan automatically will come to us. Even when we are not trying to think about him, we find ourselves thinking about him. We find ourselves wanting to think about him, wanting to read something about him, hear about him. That's when we know that he is now coming into our life. That light is coming in. And we find that things which we were anxious about earlier, right? Normally we are all anxious about different things, right? Something is not working well. Something else has to be sorted out. Or with people, we have issues with other people. So when we find that Sri Bhagavan comes into our life, some of the issues that we have had with people automatically go away. Even if the issue is not resolved, in our mind, it gets resolved. We become, it doesn't bother us anymore. We say, how does it matter? We say, how does it matter? It doesn't matter. So that person may still have an issue with us. But in our mind, we say, it doesn't matter. He can't do anything to me. Just leave it. Let it go. I don't have to reply to him. I don't have to tell him that I am correct. I don't have to prove my point to him. Okay, earlier we were trying to prove our point to him, but he was not accepting it. And we were saying, why doesn't that fellow accept? Kabhi manta hi nahi hai sala. We are always angry with that guy. But now we say we have become peaceful. Let him think I am the most wicked guy. It's okay. I'm okay with it. We become fine. Because mind becomes peaceful. Because Sri Bhagavan starts dominating our mind. The mind starts experiencing a certain form of sweetness. That bitterness doesn't look bitter anymore. It doesn't matter. It's true, no, Swapnil? Swapnil has experienced this.
But I think I have to tell myself maybe both of you because I'm still attached to so many things. No, but if we extrapolate this thing which you just explained, this particular story. So I'm not sure what was the level of attachment Bhagat is developed towards the bhakti of Sri Bhagavan. So when we see like light has entered some place and it has captured it fully, there is very little scope for the darkness to enter again. So in this particular story, how this particular example of how the possibility of that miracle coming into his life and like if we consider it like similar to the darkness, if we
in the simple example I gave, it is a simple process. It's just an analogy where you put on the switch. It's just one simple activity of putting on the switch and the room is filled with light. But here, bringing this light called Krishna into our life is not so simple. It's a process of repetition, satatam. He says, satatam kirtayanto mam, ananya chetaha satatam. This word satatam in Sanskrit means something that's done by repetition, something that has to be done again and again and again. not just once. It's not like just once switching on the light. If I just chanted Krishna's name once, that may not be good enough for me. Although it is said that Krishna's name is Krishna himself, right? It contains all the Shakti that he has. But because I am not sufficiently pure, it does not fully stay with me. So by repeatedly doing this, over time, slowly that light enters into our life. It doesn't enter at one shot. That is why some darkness still remains for a long time. So it depends on how sincerely one does bhakti, how determined one is. Some people are very determined. They devote themselves. I've seen people like that. They devote themselves all the time. They're doing it and they're very careful not to do anything wrong. They will not commit aparadh, even if you give them, incite them, even if you try to make them do something wrong, they will not do. They're very, very careful. Yes, he was still in the process. Yes. He was still having something left in him, which one point of weakness, which actually caught hold of him. And that actually pulled him down. Right?
That also we can think of it as a bigger picture of the Bhagwan, the Leela of the Bhagwan.
Perhaps we can think of it like that. Because after all, he was the son of Vishnu himself. So Sri Bhagavan probably used him to teach us a lesson. He would not have used a common man like that. He used his own bhakta to teach us a lesson. Just like now he is using Arjuna to teach us the whole Bhagavad-Gita. So he's using Bharata to teach us something useful for us. Caution us that even a great person can fall down like that. What to speak of you and me.
The path is very difficult. How the next life is attaining the form of mad-bha. But when he attains Sri Bhagavana, when being mad-bha, then we have to attain human life again. Because throughout this time, during this life, he's worked towards attaining Sri Bhagavana. So he is an enlightened being.
So Rakshit's question is very relevant. He's asking, now that he has carried the memory of his past life into the body of a black buck, he's going to be born as a black buck now, with the memory of his full life. So he knows Bhagavan, he knows everything. All the knowledge is with him. Then can he attain Sri Bhagavan in that life itself? Or does he have to be born as a human being again? So it's a very good question. You will have to hold this question until the next class. And in the next class, I'll be answering this. Good question. Yeah. Those who are online, I can see that some of you are coming for the first time. If you want me to add your name in my mailing list, then please send me an email. You know my email ID, akm@xlri. So send me an email and I'll add your name to my mailing list. And every week you will receive a mail saying there's a class on Sunday. And if there is no class on some Sunday, that also you will be informed. Do you have any questions today, those who are online? Arnab?
So no questions from my side.
None from me, Prof. Thank you.
Okay.
No questions, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. No questions.
Objective was to protect the dharma. Like, in process of doing it, he got entangled for the attachment part. But the very act of doing it, like act of protecting the animal, that was the dharma, right?
Yeah, that was dharma. Therefore, every dharma does not.
Entangled.
Yes, he became
you-
attached. Yes.
Can you please repeat the question because it's not audible to people
Yeah,
online?
sorry. The question was, this is raised by Anjana. She's saying the act of protecting out of compassion, like Bharata did of the deer, wasn't that dharma by itself? It's also dharma because, protecting or helping another living being when it's in trouble is definitely dharma. It's punya. So was that responsible for his entanglement? How can somebody who does dharma become entangled? The question is along those lines. Yes. It depends on how you do dharma. In this case, he is doing dharma with the abhiman that I am the doer. Main karta hoon. That is like the sakama karmi. Right? The sakama karmi also does dharma with abhiman. that I am the enjoyer. Okay, enjoyment to me is given by Vishnu or some deva. And I'm doing this so that I can enjoy future, more. Of course, Bharata may not have thought by protecting this deer, I'll get punya and I'll enjoy. He just felt compassion. It was spontaneous for him. So with that spontaneity, he performed that dharma. It was always dharmic only. There was no pap in what he did. So, but because of this principle that whatever you think of, yam yam vapi smaran bhavam tyajatyante kalevaram tam tameva eti kaunteya sada tad bhava bhavitaha. Always thinking of the deer. He naturally thought of the deer at the point of his death. And he attained that. He did not do anything wrong in that sense, in the sense of pap.
Like indicating away just because it's that last minute thinking. So you can't have you can't waver away from your attention towards Bhagavan for a second.
Yeah. Shit's question is, all the goodies that you have done in your life, just because you made a small mistake, like let's say, for example, in answering a question paper, okay, mathematics paper, everything has been answered correctly, but in one place you forgot to put the full stop. Okay, then teacher says, I'll give you a F grade because of that. Imagine somebody does that. Then isn't it a very cruel thing to do? That's Rakshit's question. My answer is this, that no, the teacher in this case also. Now, what would a normal teacher do if she's a bit lenient? She will give you still 100 out of 100. But if she's very strict and she insists on the commas and the full stops to be put, she may give you 99.5 out of 100. In this case, that's what has happened, because none of the goodies were taken away from him. All the goodies that he did are still with him. And that is why he is able to remember Sri Bhagavan in the next birth as well. And that applies to others also who are not bhaktas of his level. All of us also, anything good that we do, even if by some misfortune we do some things bad, we will be punished for the bad things we do, no doubt about that. But whatever good we have done, we will also be rewarded for that. So punishment and reward, they don't cancel each other out. So whatever good has been done will be rewarded appropriately at the appropriate time.
So can we have some actionable items which we can work on a daily basis to initiate this bhakti?
Yeah, we can talk about that. Maybe in a different class, we can talk about the different angas of bhakti. Maybe in the next class or the next to next class, I can prepare something on different angas, what it involves to do them, how we can, as individuals, bring some aspects of bhakti into our life. Some very tangible, actionable aspects. Yes. Each of us can do that.
One quick thing, Prof, I was thinking, so in most cases, Rishabdeva and Buddha are considered avatars of Vishnu, as you mentioned earlier in the class. So why would, say, I mean, the origin of these religions is what sometimes makes me question about, the necessity of these religions. So what's the thought behind it? Say, on one hand, saying that, I exist, and on the other hand, saying that, like Mahavirajina or someone would be like really proposing that there's no God, it's all in you. So from a thought, one focuses on Brahman, one focuses on something else. So what's the thought behind it in creating that at a larger scale? What's the logic that Bhagavatam or something else might have provided in this same context?
The acharyas explain that, for example, take the case of Buddha. So why does Sri Vishnu appear as Buddha and give a philosophy which goes against the Veda, or which asks people to reject the Veda? He starts his own Shastra there. So the explanation given is that in the beginning of the Kali Yuga, when the Kali Yuga begins, the population becomes more and more papasakta, means it becomes more and more papatmaka, performs pap, tendency towards doing wrong things increases. So one of the things specifically that happened was in the beginning of this Kali Yuga, that the Brahmanas, they began to misuse the Veda for their own purposes, which were not the intention of the Veda. For example, it is said that in some places they applied the Veda to promote eating meat, non-vegetarian food. Now, meat is strictly condemned or strictly prohibited. Meat is allowed under certain circumstances, but with the rider that if you eat meat, then in a future birth, you have to take the body of that animal whose meat you have eaten, and that animal will kill you in return. You'll be born as a human being or something else, and you will suffer a death at the hands of that animal. Okay, this is a clause that is put when you have to kill an animal and eat the animal's meat, if you have to eat it, right? But this is not told, right? People eat meat just by saying that, okay, in Hinduism, meat eating is allowed. Right? This is a false thing that is spread. So I'm giving you just a simple point here. There are many things. So it is described that the Brahmanas, especially the Brahmanas who are supposed to be the protectors of the Veda, they are the ones who are responsible for misusing the Veda and using it for spreading false things. So therefore, Sri Bhagavan, out of his own compassion, because that is very, very, it gives them a lot of pap, and they will suffer in the future for doing that. So to prevent such adharma from happening, Sri Bhagavan appears as Buddha and tells people, because they are not going to accept the Veda. If you tell them to try to argue with them and show them the Veda is saying something else, they have already rejected the Veda. They are already misusing the Veda. They will not accept you. So he himself rejects the Veda and says, now follow ahimsa. Okay, ahimsa is one of the important principles of Buddhism, right? Of Buddha, Gautama Buddha, and many other things which come with ahimsa. So Buddhists actually are not supposed to eat meat. Today's Buddhists eat meat, I know, but they are not supposed to. In fact, some Buddhists who are really, who know their philosophy properly, they have these alternate items which are made of vegetables which look like meat. In some of these foreign countries, if you go to Singapore or even Japan, Hong Kong also, there are restaurants where you get food. Even in India now, some places I found this. Even in Jamshedpur, there's one restaurant. For those of you who are sitting here, if you want to taste it, there's food which looks like meat, which may also have the smell of meat, but it's not meat. It is pure vegetarian food. Okay, so this is to help people overcome their attachment to meat. So Buddhists are actually not supposed to eat meat. And one of the things that Buddha achieved, or Vishnu achieved in his form as Buddha, was to help people live a sinless life in accordance with their Shraddha. So in accordance with the Shraddha of the Jivatma, Sri Bhagavan takes a form and tries to guide the Jivatma towards living a life which is not adharmic, which doesn't make the Jivatma suffering more in the future. Arnab, does it answer your question?
It does. It does in certain ways. I'm just thinking that for, say, Jainism or something, why would certain tenets be very contradictory to what the Vedas would say? I think that's my piece, because I think with the origin of Sanatana Dharma, the way I was looking at some of this, so when it started, one of them said that Murti Puja is fine. Later on, whereas the other side of Sanatana Dharma, bringing out Jainism, said that Murti Puja is not something that's necessary, and some of this. So which is why my thought around this was a lot. I think somebody in Punjab a few years back or something said that he's the Kalki Avatar or something. So in certain ways, I'm trying to think of what would people typically think to be the fundamental ways of the Vishnu taking an avatar, and what are some of the ways that we should be following? How do we know that we are not like we are connected to Krishna, but how does one know that they are not, in a sense, following someone who's not teaching them something that's broad, inclusive, or something like that? I think that's where my question comes from.
Let me try
Like
to answer. Yeah, sorry. Complete. Please complete, Arnav. Please complete.
No, I'm saying because a lot of Jains would use that, or a lot of Hindus also would use that, or a lot of people would use the same basis to create distinctions and have place forward their points that can create more distinction between people. And so my idea is why not? So, so why would God essentially come, take an avatar, and split people up in certain ways instead of rectifying something like having the same tenets? I think that's where I'm coming at.
Okay,
Like
I got it. Yeah.
having the same tenets, yeah.
See, it's because of this that the Jivatma in this samsara exists since eternity, right? We come back to that most fundamental point again and again because it helps us to answer all these questions. Since beginninglessness, all of us are in the samsara. Now, all of us are not identical. Fundamentally, as Jivatmas, we are identical, but in the samsara, we are not identical. In the samsara, the kind of vasanas we have, they are all different. All of us have an individuality that's defined by our vasanas, and which in turn defines our shraddha, the kind of shraddha or conviction in anything that we have towards a devata or away from a devata, or towards anything in life, a goal of life, what is the purpose of life. All our shraddhas are different. So, difference between people is not created by Bhagavan. It is innate in us. It is there in us since timelessness. Sri Bhagavan tries to give some order to it by creating some paths. So by creating different paths, he's actually reducing those distinctions. People who follow the same path, they will have less distinction between themselves. These distinctions otherwise will be even more. If there's no path at all, these distinctions will be even more. Now, the paths are defined according to the Shraddha. Okay, for example, now there is a path that some people are trying to follow, let's say Buddhism. Now, those who are having a particular kind of Shraddha, because of their innate vasanas, since their, which has accumulated since, historically for them, they are attracted to Buddhism. Not everybody is attracted to Buddhism. Only some people are, right? So those who are attracted are people with that type of vasana. Similarly, not everybody is attracted to hearing about Krishna like the way we are talking about him. Many people may not like this, the way that I am talking about Krishna, right? Though those who come here are people whose vasanas allow them to accept this. They find their Shraddha is such that this seems acceptable to them. So our Shraddha decides what seems acceptable to us and what does not seem acceptable to us. So some people, this will seem completely unacceptable or unattractive. To some people, something else will seem attractive. So according to Shraddha, we go to whichever path we see in front of us. And Sri Bhagavan creates these various paths for our benefit. Of course, he doesn't create all the paths which have existed, which we see in this world. Those paths which have some form of dharma in them. Like Buddhism also is some form of dharma, right? It is not, although it doesn't follow the Veda, it still tells people not to do himsa, tells people to follow some discipline. It tells people to speak the truth, etc., right? Ahimsa, Satya, all these things are a part of Buddhism also. Somebody who has read Buddhism better will know exactly what is there. So he's actually, by creating a path like Buddhism, he's giving a channel or an avenue for people of a certain type of Shraddha to live a dharmic life and come away from adharma that they were otherwise doing.
I see. Yeah. I see the larger purpose. It's rather like bringing. There would be chaos anyway. The chaos would be in terms of the differences in what people feel attached to.
Yes.
So rather, like not completely taking away the belief, giving them that some order in that chaos. I think that's the idea from a larger perspective. It's like instead of doing XYZ, you at least follow a religion that works for you.
Yes. There's no one garment which fits everybody. So you make a garment which fits that person. That's what Sri Bhagavan is doing. So Buddhism is a particular kind of garment which fits people with one kind of Shraddha.
Right. If someone says, I don't believe in, God. So he'll be like, okay, fine, don't believe in God. Believe in Brahman, but still follow these principles and follow this religion called Jainism. Okay,
Yes,
makes sense.
absolutely. Absolutely. We close the class now with our final Antima Mangalam. Om Tad Vishno Paramam Padagum Sada Pashyanti Surayah Divi Vachakshuratatam Tad Vipraso Vipanyavo Jagruvagum Sassamindhate Vishnor Yat Paramam Padam Parya Anantarayaya Sarvastamotiratra Uttamamaharbhavati Sarvasyaptyai Sarvasya Jityai Sarvameva Tena Apnoti Sarvam Jayati. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Tat Sat. Dhanyavadaha. Punarmilama.